Leslie, I have to pay you a compliment. Tammy Steinkamp was so excited that you came to take pictures. She's like, she's so good. She came. She can't even remember contacting her. So funny. I'm like,
Yeah, I muted it because they were.
Leslie, I love that thing you did for social worker at Woodview.
Oh my gosh.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, I hope she sees those, otherwise I'll have to.
And I love the comments, every comment.
Right.
So
Testing. Welcome everyone to tonight's pregame show. Go ahead and call the meeting to order. Call the roll.
Strack.
Here.
Weedman.
Here.
Alfrey. Here. Mesco.
Here.
Northern.
Here.
Parkinson. Here.
All right. Let's recess pledge. If I could have a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
Any questions? All right.
Mesco.
Aye.
Strack.
Aye.
Weedman.
Aye.
Northern.
Aye.
Alfrey. Aye. Parkinson.
Aye.
One note before we get started is that I want to let people know that we will not be releasing the closed session that's been recently approved. So first thing, are there any public comments? Public comments?
Do you need for a take back here? Okay, let me help
So we have, they're just getting documentation. Are there any board reports, any comments anyone would like to make?
Yes, I have one. First, I want to thank the board for voting me in as the new CDAW representative. But before I was voted in as the CDAW representative, I went and had an opportunity to be an alternate for us. And it was an amazing program, and I was really excited for what I saw there, the type of activities that they do for amazing things that they have part in other districts. I had already planned to have a walkthrough in more detail of a meeting over at CDAW, and it was a program I was really excited about. It's called the Transition Program, and worked with 18 and 21-year-olds. And it was exciting because, the individuals with disabilities, they created painting artwork, and they sell it, and it's to help fund their program. So I had an opportunity to purchase and see how they make this. So I'm excited about being on that CDAW board for the many activities that they do and the great work that the teachers and the students over there are doing. And I encourage the other board members that hadn't had an opportunity to tour it, to go tour it. It's amazing. So,
Thank you.
I attended a few things, one, attended a couple sessions at Institute Day, and, more organized, and useful. I sat in on the math one and the science one, and then at the beginning of the day, and then I sat in on the session at the end of the day with the wrap things up. Things went well for us, I think. Attended a GMS choral concert. Was impressed with the number of boys singing in some of the Sunday night choirs. The boys, they don't know whether they're tenors or basses at that level. And I was very good concert, enjoyable. And Saturday I went to Naperville where they had the workshop for the people that were coaching Science Olympiad. Saw some people there, like I saw a couple of people I hired there who are miles west, and we reminisced and talked about a few things. But I found out that there's an elementary Science Olympiad, which I want to learn more about. They start as low as third grade, with certainly some more primitive activities. But they've even taken some of the schools have taken precocious second and first graders and put them into third grade classes. So I want to learn a lot more about that. And Science Olympiad at GMS starts Monday. We're doing optics this year.
I wanted to mention I had the opportunity to attend the band concert at the middle school, and I know I have praised our music and arts departments in the past. I just want to continue do that. It's amazing how good these kids sound in October. And not only just how they sound, but I can see it from my own children, but also from everyone who's participating. They love it, they enjoy it. And that started with the music program in kindergarten, first, second grade, all the way on up. And I just want to shout out again to what great musical and arts teachers and instructors we do have. Thank you.
There's no saying, that didn't happen overnight.
And Tom, my son in the choir over there too.
Anything else?
I just had a happy birthday. Paul, happy birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
35 again.
Might have been a special one, but we won't talk about
We won't talk
what
about
it was. No.
It's a rounded number.
Sure. Both our Park Campus and Woodview were attendance award winners this year during the 28th annual Lake County Regional Office of Education Attendance Week, September 12th through the 16th. So it was great for them, and thank you all our Girl Scouts for being here tonight. It's pretty awesome that you're here. And we also got another special certificate, and I'm going to let Heather come up and tell you about that.
Hello. Oh, it's loud. As you know, we undergo an audit every few years for pre-K, and it's looking at our at-risk programming. It's quite rigorous, and we receive points based on many, many indicators and objectives. And based on that, we received a accreditation for having the top level of Circle of Quality, meaning the gold, and that is through 2018. So that is a huge deal for the state of Illinois. It's recognized through ISB. So I want to present that to all of you. To us, from you, to us, from them. Present it to me.
Good job, Heather.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Next, if I could have a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Second.
Any questions?
Northern.
Aye.
Parkinson. Alfrey.
Aye.
Strack.
Aye.
Mesco. Weedman.
Motion carries. We don't have any action items, so we'll on to unfinished business. And the first is the roof at GMS.
Keith, you want to come up?
Well, we've starting to get some quotes in from architects. Hopefully the next board packet will have some in for you guys to read. We're meeting World this Friday, and we have found another person that may be interested in giving us a quote as far as for putting the roof on the building. I talked to our structural engineer from 2010. He went over the old blueprints. It appears as though the roof is more than capable of handling lightning storms and thunder, handling another set of shingles being put on. So I'm pretty confident after walking through with him, and he showed me what to look for in the blueprints, that if it's so and goes the way we're doing a second layer, we're more than capable of holding that in the snow load. And I didn't really still understand the whole snow load formula, but he tried to explain it to me, but it's an interesting one versus the ground versus up there and what melts. But he did show me how it works, and he did the calcs, so we should be good to go.
Will we get information that we can all see to try to understand it?
I can see if I can get him to put something together. This was more for probably pro bono than charging us for it. So I'll see what I can get from him for you guys to read.
The architects also have their own engineers come out.
Right. I just kind of did it.
Start the process.
Yeah, because I wanted to make sure,
We're in the right direction.
you know, I wanted to have all my ducks in a row before we push on as far as that. You know, if it wasn't going to, then we would go back the other way. But until we know a little more, we'll probably see you next board meeting.
Is it still a 25 or 30 year?
The warranty works like this. I did find that one out. It'll be a 40-year shingle, and the shingle itself, if we do an overlay, will be warranted for 40 years, not the workmanship. I mean, who put it up, who installed it up there. That's a standard 2, but I've already talked to 2 of the architects and said, when we do the bid specs, can we extend that to 10 on workmanship? But the shingles themselves, even being laid over, it would be a 40-year, say the shingles started to deteriorate, but it would probably be on us after the 2-year period to produce the labor to replace them. This is the biggest difference. In my research, I haven't seen many shingles deteriorate other than from a storm or hail damage, of which at that point we would go for the insurance company. And then that's exactly what they would tell you from the shingle manufacturer. You know, they're gonna come out and put their cute little square on there and count how many dimples are in there and tell you if it's good to go or not to go, because we did that with the hail that we had up at Meadowview, and it didn't qualify.
And then that would, you're estimating that it's gonna be about 2/3 the cost of tear off and redo?
Right now,
Estimate.
estimate, no, was surprised. Let us get a couple more numbers. I was actually surprised, but I did find something out. I didn't get to see Chris this afternoon to explain to him what else is in the, we just got it yesterday, one pricing, and the other one's coming in on Friday. So I will have a better answer for you, hopefully at the next board meeting when we get some ideas of what pricing is gonna be.
We'll try to get the information out prior, like maybe even in a weekly update so that you can take a look
Yeah,
at it. So
that's
give you
fine.
more time to look at it.
I want to let you at least do that, but I want to see what this one says and what the Alliance says. So that's where we're at. Any other questions?
This is a general one. Down the road, as we look at flat roofs, is this on? As you look at flat roofs, I've known some schools have had flat roofs and they leak, and after a while they decide, let's just put a roof on it, like we have on my house. And it's an interesting concept because the water, instead of sitting on top of the roof, runs down into the gutters and under the ground.
Yes.
Interesting. So the water doesn't sit there in this climate. Anyway, down the road, as we look at the roofs, I'm wondering if we can also get some, at least look into, would it be cheaper in the long run to just put a solid roof up on these buildings?
This building is one that has been modified.
Yeah,
Avon has been modified in the district. The only 2 we would have left to do would be Woodview and Park, and I wouldn't suggest doing Park. It's too new. But it is something we could look at doing at Woodview when it's rough time.
something like that.
Again, like I said, they did it back in the day to Avon, and it makes a big difference to the look of the building.
Thank you. 5-year financial projection.
Yeah, this is instead of discussion, maybe discussion, it's more of a presentation, I suppose. This is kind of annual housekeeping state of the state, state of the district. Just to show you where we're at right now and what potentially down the road can be happening. Yeah. That's good. Better? And the assumptions that I made for the 5-year budget, kind of similar to what I've done before. I could present it with different salary scenarios, so I just picked one flat salary going forward, just 2% across the board. I've got increases in medical insurance, transportation, tuition, the district insurance, goods and services. And then I've also put in there, just in case something would happen with the CPI shift that they've been talking about, or actually the CPI there is, it shows you if there was a change of 1% of December CPI, that's the CPI that we use for our revenues, for our levy, what the difference would be. For fiscal year 17, we're at 0.7%. We know right now CPI is right around 1.4, 1.46, but then again, it could dip in December, it could go up in December. So we're beholden to that 1 month only. estimated that at 1.4%. And then hopefully I'm thinking things get back to a more normal level. 1.5 is still low. A normal level is roughly 2.2, 2.3%. So I kept it relatively low there. New growth, 4.67 million for fiscal year 17. That's an estimate for what we have for this year. I put in $2 million for the following year, and then I slowed it back down again to about where we were on average. General state aid, I will tell you this year, for the state, they had it at 100%, kept it at 100%. I'm hoping that they keep their word and it will be given to us at 100%. But beyond that, just based on how the state is going, I wanted to be conservative. So I dropped it back down to last year's level at 92%. And those red figures below, the $689,000, that's the difference between 100% and 92%. Those are in this presentation. So realize when I go through this that it's at a 92% general state aid level. And then the pension shift, that's the 1%. If they decide to shift it for every 1%, that's about the amount it's going to cost us based on our current staffing. And then I threw in some of the infrastructure expenses. We're kind of currently in the middle of updating our infrastructure. These are the remaining costs that we're looking at. There are some rebates that go with them that are revenues, and then our summer operations and maintenance work schedule. That's kind of, that goes along with our 10-year facility plan. So when I put all of these assumptions together, we are looking at, from fiscal year 17, this year's budget, to fiscal year 21. If you look at those bottom figures, surplus deficit, that top row, that first top yellow row is everything except for debt service. So you can see that we're estimating a surplus this year, followed by some pretty significant deficits. The bottom row, I actually took out operations and maintenance and working cash. Operations and maintenance I took out because those are part of those 10-year projects that we're looking at. Those are planned projects. So some of those are the larger costs. But you can still see that we're running a fairly significant deficit going forward. Remember the GSA, like I said before, we're still at 92%. Then I broke it down by our operating funds. And this is our education fund. I know there's a lot of numbers up here. You want to focus on, in that top area, the GSA, which is in red, going across. You can see this year that we're at about $9.6 million in general state aid. And then you can see it kind of drastically drop down to 7.9 million, 7.1 million, 6.7 million. That's where all of this is coming from. That's where we're looking at these deficits. It's based on the general state aid and the reduction that could take place. I do have some hope that it will not be that, and I've got a later slide that will kind of explain what they're looking at downstate to hopefully alleviate what would be our problem as a district. The rest of it is normal. I'm talking about not adding any programs. I'm not adding staff. I'm not decreasing staff. So this would be us right now as is, moving forward in the same direction, just going normally through. So you get to that second set of red numbers, that row, and you can see what the surplus deficit is. And you can see by next year, fiscal year 18, we're looking at about a $1.2 million deficit, followed by 1.8 up to 2.6, so on and so forth. And you can see our fund balance in the row below that dropping from the $10.6 million level all the way down to $2.1 million by the time we hit fiscal year 21. My recommendation obviously would be to try to keep the fund balance at about that $10 million level. That's where I'm very comfortable. I know it's dipped below that before. We've been down in the sevens, but you can see kind of the direction that we may be heading. I want to look at the next one here, and that's the operations and maintenance slide. The big issue with this one, once again, I highlighted in that middle section, our red level, that's our infrastructure, that's our capital outlay. Those are going to be the things like the roofing project at the middle school, or a paving project through fiscal year 21 based on the 10-year facility plan. Surplus and deficit for that one as well is in that second red row. Most of that is just based on what we're doing with facilities, things of that nature. So in this fund, we actually have a solid fund balance, and we have planned on reducing that fund balance by undertaking some of these projects. So this fund I'm not terribly worried about, even though it does actually decrease significantly. Our transportation fund, right now we are at a surplus, which is great. In the past we have been at a deficit. Going through and figuring out where to put money for the levy, obviously I want to tailor a lot of money towards the education fund, seeing as how the type of deficit that we're going to face in the future, but we still have to levy to the transportation fund, and as much as I tried, You can see by the time we get to fiscal year 21, based on everything and all the assumptions that we have, we still will have a deficit estimated in this fund as well. So this goes towards that second slide that I showed you, talking about the overall surplus or deficit that we will be facing. Social Security IMRF, this will follow or mimic anything that we have to do with salaries. So as the salaries increase by 2%, obviously Social Security IMRF, you can pretty much guarantee that it'll be up 2% as well. A lot of this is based on the levy and what we do with the levy. We do have a decent fund balance in here, and you can see it kind of wobbles. We got it going down a little bit and back up a little bit towards the end, but it still has a solid fund balance by the time we hit fiscal year 21. And then finally, the tort fund. We use this for one thing and one thing only. We had to levy high at the very beginning in order to make sure that we can make the payment the first year. There is a little bit of a surplus in here. I mean, by the time we hit fiscal year 21, you can see that fund balance is at 60%. But obviously, $111,000 versus an education fund that's at $10 million, there's a large difference there. So while this is a very nice fund balance, overall, we'd be looking at some significant decreases. And I know we've had some, and it's coming up very shortly, the levy, some talk or some questions about freezing taxes. This just gives you an estimate of what would happen. If we froze taxes completely to what the extension was last year, that is the first column in red, over the period levy year 2015, which would be for 16-17. You can see it's a $392,000 decrease in our revenues, and add that up all the way through the 2020 levy year. You can see we'd be losing about $2 million, because if you decrease the levy once or freeze it once, that is a perpetual freeze, which means every year you'd be losing that amount plus CPI. So that would obviously snowball, and you can see the amount that we would lose. Now, if we try to somehow tailor a way to put in, freeze the levy, but capture the new growth, that is that final column on the right-hand side, it would be almost, obviously it's going to be a little bit less, but it would be about half the difference, and we'd lose about $1 million over the same period of time. So, and the total loss is based on, like I said earlier, about $4.6 million in new growth this year, and that 0.7% CPI increase. And what a lot of people don't understand is if we say we're going to do a tax freeze, it doesn't mean that the value that you pay or the amount of taxes you pay will actually freeze for our district's portion. It'll just mean the amount we collect freezes. So if your property goes up or your property goes down, your taxes might go up or your taxes might go down, even though we did not decide to levy a penny more. And that's one thing that a lot of people have trouble grasping.
Chris?
Yes.
Could you also touch briefly on, you mentioned here the impact on new growth, but that how we have one opportunity that only happens
to capture growth?
To capture new growth at the higher level is once, and that.
Yes, it kind of falls along the same principle as doing a tax freeze. You have that one opportunity. If you do not capture that opportunity at that point in time, that opportunity is lost. And it's not just lost for this year, it's lost going into perpetuity because you didn't capture it in the first place. We always go off of the prior year's extension. That is the base level that we use. And every year, growth is different. And growth does not affect all existing properties. Existing properties are pretty much affected by CPI, and then obviously the assessor and the home value. So when you're talking about that first loss of income versus the second loss of income, one of them, if we went with the second loss of income, what we would be doing is actually all of the new growth would be coming in and contributing to our old extension. So in effect, it would be lessening everybody else's tax responsibility because it would be pulling their tax levy revenue into the same point. So it would kind of be like a double hit. And I put this slide on there. If anybody has questions about it, please let me know. This is the general state aid formula. This is how the state determines the revenues that we're going to get. And the biggest things on here are going to be the equalized assessed value. Up at the top, you can see 14, 15, and 16 equalized assessed value. 14 and 15 are known. 16 is estimated at the $622 million count. If you go to the formulas down low, you can see how the foundation level is calculated. Basically take 100, they multiply it by the foundation level, which is $6,119, multiply that by our average daily attendance, and divide that whole amount by 100. So I kept the same exact student count and the same exact foundation level on all three of the formulas for the next 3 years to determine what the base year, or determine what the foundation level would be, and that's that $21 million mark. It's on all three, and then what the state does is they say these are based on these calculations and your EAV, you can come up with your available local resources. That's 100 multiplied by your EAV, multiplied by the elementary. They give that, it's just the figure that they use for elementary schools. Divide that by 100 and then add in your corporate personal and property replacement tax. So between 2016-17, where we have $12 million in our available local resources, based solely on the fact that property values are going up, to the 18-19, we're at $622 million. Our resources go from 12 million up to 14.4, and all of that, the state says, well, you basically have more local effort, you have more dollars in your community, so therefore we're going to give you a reduced amount by that exact dollar. So they turn around and just because property values go up, they're going to give us less money. So that's how the state formula works. It's a little bit interesting. It's based on property values. Yes.
How many years straight now is the foundation for the 6119?
We started in 2007-8.
So almost 10 years.
It's been there for a long time. The state hasn't done anything about it. Obviously, the state's also prorated us, and we've been shorted millions of dollars.
So even the general state aid formula is not.
It's not, but this is the new formula that they're looking at. It's different. It can be very complicated on the backside. They use, instead of the CPI, they use comparable wage index, which is an amount that's a regional cost differentiation. So it's not just one general CPI for the entire country. They do it by region. They also use local capacity target. It's a different type of formula, but the key, and this is the reason why I put this slide in red, the base funding minimum, there's a hold harmless that goes with general state aid. And what they would say is that whatever you made in this year, should this get passed, will be the lowest you can make going forward. So your general state aid will not go down. Now, the formula dictates that you should not be making as much this year. They will just hold you to that level until such time as the funding comes up and that level gets surpassed by their formula. So they would actually hold us at our current general state aid, which is that $9.6 million level, and not the 7.9 or the 6.29 that I showed you beforehand, which would be fantastic for us and alleviate a lot of the problems that I showed you. All of those deficits, we could probably take a step back and take a deep breath and say, okay, now we have some room to work with. So a lot of what we're doing here is we're beholden to the state. They pretty much whatever they decide to do is going to kind of determine what direction we're going to go from here. So
Looking at that being implemented quickly, or
It's supposed to
We're
make a
in-
decision in February, but whether that happens or not, I don't know, but that's every meeting
I mean-
we've gone to.
I think a lot of people, there's going to be turnover and change, and everybody wants to kick it down the road.
So it's dependent on the election and stuff.
Yes.
It's dependent on the election, and then obviously when you're new and somebody throws this in front of you and says, we have an issue, do you have enough time to actually look at it and make that's right. So this has been a focus. I know it's IASBO, I'm sure it's all of the eyes that are out there, and that they want this to pass. They think it's a good model. It'll run into some opposition, and a lot of people won't understand it. So, and we'll end it right there.
What's the opposition? Like what kind of districts?
Well, opposition comes a lot in the form of just politics in general, because there are kind of haves and have-nots, which is true. There's inequity all over the state, and obviously if your region is one of the haves, and this is not going to be good for you because you're going to be frozen for a long time, then you would be opposed to it. Also, there are a number of different people that have different formulas that they think are the best formula. So they've gone through a couple of these beforehand, and it just kind of sits and stalls. But I think we're getting kind of to the time where action is needed. And if it's not the evidence-based model, then they really have to take a look at the foundation level and say, okay, it's been frozen for so long. You know, we need to do something about this because there's going to be some districts out there that are hurting. So.
One of the things I also wanted to have mentioned, I heard this at some of the tax levies, the thought that you mentioned how the state would give us less if the local revenues increase. But I did hear some people under the misconception that if our local funding decreased, the state would increase, which is not the case. So.
It's not funding, it's property values.
Right, I want to dispel the myth that if we do something locally to decrease the amount that we're collecting locally, that somehow the state looks at that and picks it up. Or,
Well, first of all, that would just be a bad idea in general, because they start devaluing all the properties.
But your point is that there's no automatic offset by the state if we is a loss.
right, the state doesn't come in and save us if we.
Well, what it would do, if you go back to this model here, if, let's suppose, take a look at that bottom one payable in 1819, you can see the values that we have in the property are $622 million. There is kind of a direct correlation. If that value goes down, then the state, the amount that they'll contribute will go up.
But that's some house values.
But that's only housing values. No,
right.
No, we don't, so yeah.
Any actions that we would take as our, right.
Oh, no, not at all.
That's.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, I think it's easy for everybody, but there's people who thought that that was
No,
the case,
no,
that
we
there's
can't.
something that
We couldn't have
any
it
school
like
board
that.
could do that would increase the amount the state would give us, which is. You're right.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I just kind of went to my happy place thinking about that. Any more questions? All right, thank you.
New business, discussion of triple I reports. We did do this last year.
Hey, you should have two sheets of paper, one is sort of beige, one's light green. I just recopied something I did a year ago. Remember, some of you already have done this. When we went to the state convention last year, we wanted some way of communicating to each other. What did we go to? What did we see? And what ideas are there, or points that maybe that we want to share with each other, and possibly what possible influence might it have on what we might do in the district later on. So anyway, what I want to do is just talk about doing this again. I think people want to do it again. And so I modified the form a little bit. You'll notice that the form has Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There are sessions on Sunday morning, believe it or not. I've gone to some, bright and early though. And you put in the time, your name, and title, presentation, presenters, brief description, the key points that you picked up from this, and how does this, or could it relate to our district or community? And then I'll put some things on there, there's stuff on the back, it's a useful handout available. So, I just want your reaction to me about the format, this on the green sheet. Is that okay to you, Sada?
I think it's fine. The only thing I would say is that use the form to take notes while you're there. But if I'm the one compiling information, I like to have it electronically. And so just submit it electronically so we can put it all together and have one document everyone can look at for everything. But yeah, as far as the format, I think it's fine.
Well, the way I did it, I took my notes and then I sort of condensed them and then transferred them to the paper. Yeah. And then they were typed up after that, but the key, the way it's written, I'm going to slide this down a little bit here, a little more space between points.
I mean, it captures all the important information.
Okay. And it's important for those who have not been down there before, it's important when we get there that we talk to each other about who's going to what, so we don't have three of us in one session and there's one session nobody's at. But we'll do that when we get there. But there's a lot of good information we can pick up. You know, something put on the exhibitor conversation. I mean, I didn't get to the exhibits fast enough the last time. They shut down like 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. Well, I've learned a lot just going to the exhibits, just seeing what's new and what's out there. By the way, for those who haven't been there before, when you go to exhibits at any convention, you walk through quickly first. Then you decide which one you want to go back to. Otherwise, you'll find yourself, an hour and a half has gone by and you've been to two exhibits. And then there's, geez, I can't spend any more time here, but I've only seen about 15% of it. And sometimes we can get into conversations with people or overhear conversations, people from other districts. And that's worth writing down too, to follow up on. And don't think you'll remember it the next week when you get home. You won't write it down then. Okay, well then I'll make sure that this is shifted a little bit. I'll write that up for us. I appreciate that.
So the goal in exhibits don't make eye contact to the. That's.
I'll be very forceful until the second trip.
Good advice. Okay. Thanks, Scott. Topics for future agenda items?
At the next meeting, we want to talk about the Prairie View outdoor classroom. We talked about this previously and that sort of fell through, and we've got another opportunity to look at that. The roof at the middle school again, the preliminary levy, and then Paul is going to present our initial park results. That's what we have so far. Right, and the appointment of, you're right, we need an action item for appointment of the board member replacement for Rob. I'm glad you're there.
Okay, are there any public comments?
Oh, I have something to add for future agenda items. If it doesn't fit or there isn't time for the immediate meeting, near future meeting, one of the things I heard raised at a couple of the levy hearings that I don't think we got a chance to really address was the whole issue of enrollment. And I think it'd be great if we could do a presentation to show that we can't, the total number of enrollment is really a useless number in many ways, and that you cannot make assumptions just based on a total number, that if one student leaves and a new student comes in, you're not necessarily students. The number of students per grade, per building, has a big impact on the budget and on choices. And that you see that enrollment is down by a certain percentage, that doesn't give you all the information to determine where our costs are. So some breakdown and an explanation of it, I think would be very helpful for the public.
Thank you. Public comments, if any? All right. Then that concludes the main part of our meeting. We do have one interview with potential candidates for the board. We will not do that.
So we're done with the main meeting, so the girls can leave, and we really appreciate your being here tonight. And I hope you get your badge.
Yeah, I have a question with the Girl Scouts. Did you still have merit badges like we used to have Boy Scouts years ago? Do Girl Scouts have merit badges anymore or not?
Yes, they do.
They do, okay. Is there one in coding or computer programming or something to do with coding?
Not at this age level. But,
Okay.
the next level up does have a computer-based one. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Oh, they are? Jacket Rob.